Hey everybody, Josh here. I'm a YouTuber slash the leveled cybersecurity course instructor, and we have Justin here, who he recently went through the course and then got a job afterwards. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about yourself, like your background, and then what made you decide to like take the cybersecurity course through level?
Sure. So I actually turned 30 like 2 weeks ago. So I would summarize my 20s as trying different things and trying to figure out the type of work that I liked. So right out of high school, I joined the Army Reserve and I was like
Oh,
a cop in the military. And then past there, the rest of my 20s was doing a bunch of miscellaneous sales and customer service roles. And my last job was in the mortgage industry. So that was the last one before switching to IT.
oh, gotcha. Oh, that's kind of cool. You have like lots of experience too, especially with like Army Reserve.
Yeah. It was definitely cool, and I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do coming out of like high school. So it taught me a lot, and I got a really cool deployment out of it. I went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
Oh,
Um, yeah. So that was a really cool experience, but also let me know that I didn't want to be in law enforcement. So
yeah. I'm one of those people who are like, I almost joined the military, but like I never did. And I don't, I ended up working on like a Marine Corps base for a while, and then after I did that, I was like, okay, yeah, it's probably good I didn't like join join the.
well, marine training is tough, so I can understand if you saw their training, why you might have been a little bit hesitant.
uh,
'Cause they're really good in pretty much everything.
yeah, cool. So do you remember like I guess from the time you took the course and you enrolled to the time you finished, do you remember about how long that ended up, or did you finish it yet before you got a job, or you didn't finish
No,
it?
no. So I didn't finish it. So I got to the point where I was ingesting data from the Excel files. So
Mm.
that takes up to like 3 to 5 days. So I was waiting on that, but the way I supplemented your course was I also took security blue teams course, like the level one course for
Oh,
blue team security. I'm not sure what the name of the company is.
yeah.
Um, but basically, it's an entry level course that's more focused on hands-on labs.
Mm.
Um, and like it was a great way to use that time because in the time I was waiting for the Excel files to upload, I was learning about like gathering artifacts from like phishing attacks and using intelligence platforms. So it was like a good mix of the cloud stuff that I was getting from your course and like some just very down and dirty, like hands-on security stuff.
Gotcha. That's cool. I need to like actually take that course because a lot of people have been asking me about it recently, and I want to like be able to talk about it better.
I would highly recommend that course with your course, though. I think the two of them together, when you go into an interview, you'll be able to answer most questions pretty easily.
That's cool. Is it free or is it like kind of cheap or how is it?
Both are paid. It's actually roughly the same as your course right now.
Oh, okay.
So I just got both at the same time, and then I was just working both.
Okay. Oh, that's smart. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
Yeah, for sure would recommend.
Cool. Did you start job hunting like during the time like during while you were doing the courses kind of thing, or like was it before, or like when did you actually start, do you know?
So I actually left this part out, but I went through WGU. So like once I left the mortgage industry,
Hmm.
like I spent a year getting my bachelor's in cybersecurity and information assurance.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I came out with like all the certs that you get from that degree,
Gotcha.
which was good. But I realized that on my resume, all those certs are amazing, but I really didn't have hands-on experience like
Oh, yeah.
anywhere, IT hands-on experience anywhere. It was like a glaring, issue that I had to fix.
Yeah.
So that's when I ended up like looking into courses. I used you and Unix guy,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, and kind of listened to both of you to figure out which courses I was going to take.
So you didn't have IT experience, you just graduated and your first job is like cyber job?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. That's like I think a lot of people are gonna like this because it's like kind of hard to do that. You have to do a decent amount of stuff to jump like straight into cyber, which kind of sounds like you did. So like good good job.
Thank you. But well, we're gonna get into how I prepared. So
Oh yeah,
depending on how hard people want to go, I think they'll understand why that happened in a minute.
yeah, yeah. Do you? Do you remember? Do you just want to like talk about? Yeah, we can just like jump into that. Like, how'd you end up like preparing and like kind of getting everything ready?
Yeah, so I told you about the mortgage company. So what ended up happening there was everything was going fine. Company was very busy,
Mm,
and then there was a downturn, and there were massive layoffs, like
mm,
multiple. I think they're up to like 6 or 7 rounds now.
mm.
And in that, I had actually recruited my partner to the company. She was hit in the first layoff.
Oh,
So that's
damn.
what got me. Yeah, so that's what got me thinking. Like, all right, like I can't set up my whole life around an industry that's cyclical. Like it doesn't make sense in the long term.
Yeah.
So after quitting that job, that's when I decided to go to WGU, and that was my full time job. So I was working WGU actually harder than most regular full time jobs. I was doing it 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, Monday through Sunday, for
Wow.
basically a year because it took me just under a year to finish the degree.
That's pretty fast for all those certs.
Yeah, but you have to take into consideration that I did have half of the degree like transferred in
Oh,
because of
okay.
my other business related degree.
Oh,
So it was like doing an associate's in half the time, I would say. It's the best
gotcha.
like description.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So you just like kind of blitz WGU and then.
Yeah, and then that just continued. So like once I finished with school, yes, like how I started applying and such. So like as soon as I finished WGU, my 9 to 6 switched from studying and learning Python and all that good stuff to strictly applying. I did strictly applying for like the first basically since the last week in May.
Okay.
And every day 9 to 6, I was just finding opportunities within cybersecurity to apply to.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Um,
Mm.
and something useful that I learned in that process, I definitely ran out of LinkedIn jobs that I felt were like a good fit, and I started having to apply to roles that were definitely too senior for me. um, I switched it up, and I went to the Fortune 500 like list of companies, and I
Mm.
just started going to their individual sites and checking to see if there were any applicable jobs.
Mm.
And I found that a lot of the time they would have like either graduate programs or they would have interesting jobs that would fit what we're looking for as like new people. Yeah, so basically I looked at individual Fortune 500 companies and checked all of their sites, and I did find that was actually one of the interview process I was able to start. Was
Oh.
It was out of state. It was out of state. I'm based in New York,
Mm.
and it was an entry level cybersecurity analyst. I was in Colorado.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Oh, wow.
yeah, it didn't really go much further than the video interview, like just recording myself, answering a few questions, taking like quizzes, but it was
Mm.
still good practice at the end of the day, net positive. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Do you remember like how many places you ended up having to apply to before you actually like got hired?
Yeah, so I actually wrote it down. So I did
Okay.
76 just makes it easier.
Yeah.
I did 76 applications through LinkedIn since the last week of May.
Okay.
And then I did probably around 40 to 50 direct applications to like Fortune 500 companies through their websites.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna say that's not too bad, but it's probably a decent amount of work because if you're applying to those like individual ones, the application process is
Mhm.
probably like kind of different between each one. Maybe instead of
Yeah, I
like
think the toughest it's surprising like how long it takes because you would think that you're just parsing in your resume and keeping it moving, but like usually you parse in your resume and like some parts of it aren't parsed correctly. You have to like go through and input it in manually anyway. So
yeah.
it very quickly became 9 to 6.
Mm, gotcha. And then for the did you? I think I might have read this. Do you say you had three separate interviews, or was it like three interviews for the same position, or what? How did that go?
Yeah, so out of all those resumes, I mean, all out of all those applications that I sent out, I started 3 interview processes out of
Okay.
all of those applications.
Mm,
Now, I will say that when I was initially, I just was in a rush to start applying because I knew that finding my first IT job was just going to be difficult.
mm,
Um, so I don't think I did a good enough job on the front end of just making sure my resume was completely perfect as
mm.
far as grammatically and everything. Because one of the things I was actually going through your course, and you pointed out like sometimes people misspell HIPAA, and lo and behold, check my resume, and HIPAA is misspelled.
Yeah.
So that was like once again, thank you for making the course because it was a
Mm,
very easy pickup and it made me very aware of like let me go through my resume with a like in detail every
yeah,
word and just make sure everything looks good.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was so out of all those applications, it was 3 interviews. One was, like I said, the Colorado one. One was more of a project management type of role. It really wasn't cyber focused, but I was, still interested because it's IT. So any experience is good experience.
Yeah.
And then the last one, which went well. So yeah.
Nice, nice. And then for the one you got hired, can you talk about like your job title and your salary, and if you had to negotiate at all?
Sure. So I'm just gonna look at the title because I'm still not used to it.
Oh, okay.
But the title is Global Rotational Graduate. So it is like a program meant for new graduates
Oh,
with a STEM degree. And outside of that, it's Infrastructure Security Tools Administrator.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So what's really cool about the program is it's with a pretty large company, and I'll also get to rotate to one of their international offices
Oh,
to work for 6 months. So it's like I
cool.
think it's like Spain or Scotland, and I'll be there for 6 months to just
Wow.
learn the needs.
Shoot,
Yeah.
I want to
So,
do that.
yeah, it's super cool. I was very excited when I got the news. So
That's
yeah.
pretty cool. Cool, cool. And then are you allowed to give like a ballpark for your salary? And if you had to negotiate, they just gave it to you and it was like good to go.
I mean, I don't think I would be able to talk about the interview questions like in detail. I can give like I think generals. I don't want to put myself in hot water before I start,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But but as far as what I make, I mean, I'm comfortable telling you that. I don't think there's any issue with me saying that. But so what I make total comp, including like sign-on bonus and performance bonus within the first year, would put me somewhere in the 85 to 95 range, just
Oh,
depending on how things go. But yeah.
oh, yeah, that's pretty good. That's like quite good in jumping right into cyber from like no prior. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, because of the conversation I had with them, I would have taken it. I was taking the job regardless. It was the right opportunity. So I was just happy. I was happy I got the offer.
Yeah, that's like so good. Um, yeah. Did you do any kind of interview prep like from my course or like otherwise, or did it mostly come from like your studying, or how did you I guess prepare for all your interviews?
So I would say yes, I definitely did interview prep, and that kind of goes into like some of my advice down the road. But my interview prep is pretty detailed, like where I would normally study 9 to 6. Like I'm spending that day preparing for the interview. So I'm getting up first thing, I'm ironing everything,
Mm.
I'm printing out the job spec, I'm writing notes on the job spec to see like the skills that I know or have heard of, how that correlates with what's on the spec. And then I'm also running through my resume and just like practicing telling my story in
Mm.
an efficient way so that we can kind of work through the interview. And when I was in the interview, like the team was really cool about it, but I just asked them, I was like, hey, do you mind if I use the notes that I've written down on my resume? I literally still have it here. Like,
Oh, nice. Okay. Nice,
you
nice.
know, so I wrote out some solid notes just to make the conversation flow more. And it's not necessarily about remembering all of the acronyms, right? But if you can explain that you understand how systems work together,
Mm.
then I feel like they will understand that and appreciate that, as opposed to you like struggling to remember stuff and like that going on for like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, okay. What time do you start working?
So I start work at nine. Well, work at nine at 9. So
Okay.
I'm gonna be yeah. Like I asked my manager, um, like what I could study, and I start next month. I start July 10th. So I
Okay.
asked my manager what I could kind of study and brush up on to make sure that I'm effective from day one. And
Oh,
he sent me a pretty decent list of stuff that I can look into. So now I'm taking what he sent me and then I'm looking at like NIST control families and looking at specific controls that could fit into every bullet point.
nice, nice. And what you're doing is cool. I always do this when I start a new job and I have like a gap or whatever. I always ask like, oh, what can I study? And it ends up working out really good, and it makes me a good employee. So I think like it's a good move on your part, in my opinion, anyway.
Thank you. Yeah. That's like an advice thing for later, but I'll just say it now. Like
Mhm.
I think a lot of getting the initial job is just doing the small things right. So like even if you get turned down, following up to try to get feedback on what you could have done better so you can take that into your next interview. And like I said, asking your manager if you do get the job, what you can do to be efficient, like your first day. Um, Sending a thank you email after the interview, like you'd be surprised how far small things can go. So I would definitely recommend keeping that in mind when you're going through your interview processes.
Those are really good points. Because this is something that people don't think about very much, but everything you do in life tends to compound. So if you do like a lot of like really bad things, they will like compound and work negatively against you. But if you do a lot of good things, or at least like net positive things, if you do a lot of them consistently, it will like add up and you'll get some kind of result from it. You don't know what it's going to be, but you know, you'll something good will happen like eventually, right?
Yeah, I mean that's been my experience, so I'm sticking with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's good. Um, yeah. Do you have any? I guess I was going to ask if you have any final like advice or thoughts or like advice for anyone like wanting to get into cybersecurity. I know you gave some a little bit, but do you have some more that you kind of want to talk about?
Yeah, I wrote some stuff down. Some of it I'll skip because I already covered it. But the first thing was that understand that there are people like me that, like, literally my goal every day is to outwork everyone that I'm interviewing against. And I'm not saying that in a braggadocious way, but I think it's a very real thing to point out because sometimes I feel like people just think like going through college is enough, um, or going through a boot camp is enough. And it's like you have to make IT, yes, it's going to be your job, but you kind of have to make it a hobby as well because it's not about all the theory that you know, it's about your hands on skills.
Mm,
And I know life will kind of like life situations will dictate the amount of time that you're able to put in, and I think that's understandable and realistic. But on the same token, if you're not getting in the time to build those hands-on skills in your normal schedule, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't add an hour to your day to get that work in.
mm,
So that would be my first bit of advice. The second thing that I would say is be realistic with the salary requirements and be flexible if you're trying to join the industry.
mm,
So like I said earlier in the conversation, regardless of what that number was, if they gave me an offer for this job, I was going to take the job. Because I like the team that I met. I like the way the opportunity sounded. And I was an IT recruiter before this as well. And I know whether you're on the infrastructure side of things or you're on the engineering side of things or anything in
mm,
between, the money is there. So if your main goal coming out of school is I want to make six figures, like do yourself a favor, get the experience, the money will be there. I can guarantee you that. So that would be my next bit of advice.
mm,
Um, and then lastly, I kind of touched on this before, but set time aside to prepare for the interview. And it's not just studying what you've been studying, but finding and printing that specific job spec, writing notes on your resume that you can reference during the conversation with those managers, and writing a thank you letter once you finish up with the interview, doing the little things right that will take you farther than you would think. So that would be my last bit of advice.
yeah, I really like that. A lot of people sleep on those little things, and that one thing you said that's really huge is like people think like just a degree is enough or just a boot camp is enough. But I don't know if you've seen like that pillars of employment. There's like a bunch of stuff you have to worry about, right? There's a
Yeah, I saw that and I was just like, oh, this is what I do, but like actually visualized. I loved it.
yeah,
Yeah, so very helpful for sure. Pay
yeah,
attention to that if you're going through the course.
yeah. As you described like what you were doing, I was like, oh, he's like hitting all those pillars, like all of them.
Yeah. So, and I did check mark myself through. I was just like, all right, I think I'm doing a decent job on these things.
Yeah,
But I did want to add this quick note though. So my girlfriend also just joined the cybersecurity industry like 3 months before me,
oh, really?
and she went the boot camp route. And she does have an MBA, but it's not like a straight up STEM degree. Technically, it's an MBA in like systems information, and she
Hmm.
had a bit of IT experience, maybe like 3 or 4 months, but you know, she had been out of the industry for a few years, so it's not like she was, she had to relearn her skills. But for those that are worried, like you have to get the degree, you have to do a boot camp, like you can go the boot camp route, as long as you're developing your skills and you're using the right strategy during the interview process, I think you have a good shot at getting through. So you do not need the degree to make that happen. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because if you, for example, you don't have a degree, you can compensate with something else. If you don't go to a boot camp, you can compensate with something else. Like all those pillars, right? Imagine like someone doesn't have a degree or doesn't have like they don't have any certs, but like all the other pillars are like full or something. Like you can make stuff happen, right, through like effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you've done your best, you put your best foot forward and you know you've done that, like whether or not I got a denial from my last interview or not, I was completely happy because I knew I had done everything I could do to get that job. And I felt like the interview went really well. So I was happy regardless. I was obviously even happier when I got the offer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know exactly like what you mean. You're like, oh, I'm good. I'm not even gonna like, it went well as it could as well as it could have gone. Right?
exactly. That's all you can ask for. So yeah.
Yeah, I
Any other questions I can answer for you?
I don't think so. I want to commend your execution because that's like you did a really great job with all the effort and organization, and I hope people emulate you because what you did is like really good. So
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I want to thank you again for making the course. Like, obviously now you know how I used it, but I didn't even get through the full course. And being able to just talk about creating, virtual machines and networks and the rest,
mhm.
it helped me immensely in the conversation. So I just want to. It was definitely very useful for me. And thank you again.
Oh yeah. I'm glad it was useful. Thank you for joining. I'm sure this interview is going to help a lot of people too.
No problem, no problem. Well, I'll still be active in the community, so I'll give you my LinkedIn if you want to add me on LinkedIn. If you ever have any questions, people feel free to reach out, and happy to answer any questions.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Justin. Really appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. Bye bye.
Bye bye.